This is Yair Davidi, speaking to you from Jerusalem. I represent the Brit-Am movement of the 10 tribes of Israel. We hold that the lost 10 tribes are now to be found amongst Western peoples. We have proven it. We show it from different sources, from the Bible, from secular evidence. This is an introduction to a series of lectures that we will give and that will prove this point, that will show you who the lost 10 tribes are. And we will continue it over the space of several episodes, and we hope you will stay with us because it is important to you. It tells you who your ancestors were, what your duty is as an individual, and what your duty is as a nation. And incidentally, this is the second introduction that we have prepared. Our first one was up on the internet. It received 153 visits when apparently someone infiltrated the YouTube personnel and did damage to it, to what we had put up, and they claimed to be representing Libya, the nation of Libya. Why they did that, we don't know. We must be very important, even though we had not received, relatively speaking, that many visits. But it's interesting to know that these people considered us important enough to put themselves at stake, to put their own safety at stake. And so we are coming back and repeating our introduction and adding a little bit to it in the limited time that we have. The lost 10 tribes, originally there were 10 tribes of Israel, and split apart from the major body of the Israelite nation. We had 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel divided after the death of King Solomon into two separate kingdoms. You had Judah in the south, comprised of the tribe of Judah, Benjamin and Levi, and eventually with representative portions or small minority numbers from all of the other tribes, refugees as if to say at a later date. Whereas in the north you had the majority of the Hebrew peoples. There were 10 tribes of Israel. These 10 tribes of Israel were captured by the Assyrians, so taken all together to different portions of the Assyrian Empire. And there they lost their identity as God Almighty had predicted in the Bible that they would do. There was a reason for this, and a part of this reason we may understand to some degree from biblical hints, as we will discuss elsewhere. The lost 10 tribes split into different sections, different peoples. In some cases they amalgamated with other nations, with other unions, other confederacies, and so on. They were influenced by them and influenced them. But eventually they maintained some degree of cohesion amongst themselves. They remained together, and even in some cases recoalesced, rejoined together, and they retained some sense of their original communal existence. And they moved in different stages through different reasons. They moved from the east, from the Middle East into Russia, across Europe into Scandinavia and Western Europe, or they moved through Southeast Europe, through Turkey, through Southeast Europe, up in Central Europe and across into the West, or they moved across the sea via the Mediterranean to Italy and to Spain, and from there further onwards to go to what is now France, into the British Isles and Holland and so on. And we can trace different peoples, and we can also give by their namesakes, by their characteristics, and by their clan names, we can identify them with specific Israelite tribes. And we see that to some degree the Israelite tribes tended to stay together, so that they imposed their national tribal Israelite characteristics on the nations in which they settled in. And in many cases they probably comprised the majority peoples of these nations. And we trace them. We find in Switzerland many from the tribe of Issachar. In France we find people from the tribe of Reuben. In Benjamin from the tribe of Benjamin. And Ephraim in Holland. In the Netherlands from Zebulun. And also even we find that Zebulun Goy, a name of a people who once dwelt in northern Holland, being given in ancient times Zebulun Goy in Hebrew. And that's what they called themselves. They actually did call themselves that. It can be found on the Greek-Roman map of Ptolemy, who was not a Christian and not a Jew. And he recorded the presence of this people in what is now northern Holland, Zebulun Goy, the people of Holland. And Zebulun was prophesied that Zebulun would dwell on the shores of the sea. And the Dutch are the only people in the world who do literally dwell on the shores of the sea, behind their dikes and water boundaries. In Denmark we find people from the tribe of Dan. In Norway, people from the tribes of Asher and Naphtali, with Naphtali predominating. In Sweden, peoples from the tribe of Asher, but especially from Gad. And in Finland, we find people from the tribe of Issachar as well as members of the other tribes. Everywhere we find intermixing of different tribes, people from different tribes intermixing with each other. Even in biblical times, the different tribes they used to intermix with each other. Nevertheless, somehow or other, certain tribes, certain groups remained predominant, and they gave their characteristics to the nations amongst which they settled, and even their national symbolism. Even everything about them can be traced back to these Hebrew tribal characteristics that they possessed, and we have proven it, and we will show it. And more of this will come your way if you follow us, because this is important, this is true. It is vital that you have this information. We also find that the tribe of Joseph was split into two different tribes, two sub-tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh. We find them predominant in the British Isles. And we also find that they split apart. The people in the British Isles from the tribe of Britain split apart, divided out from the others, from their neighbours, and were transported. What doesn't matter how they got there. They went to North America, and they settled in the USA and Canada, especially in the USA. And we may trace them back tentatively to the tribe of Manasseh, and there are grounds to support this. And even though physically a good portion of the Israelites in the USA may be descended physically from Ephraim, Manasseh was the tribe that gave its dominant characteristics to the USA, and today the USA reflects the tribe of Manasseh. So we find in Europe, we find in Germany, for instance, many peoples dwelling alongside each other. One group or one village would separate off and leave and migrate entirely. All of the people in that village would migrate to the USA, whereas another village would remain behind. And when we analyse it, we find that those who went were different from those who stayed behind. They were often different physically, they're different in their values, in their world outlook, in their culture, in their religious and sociological values. And we may trace these people to Manasseh, to people from Manasseh separating out from their non-Israelite neighbours and moving westward to areas where they joined other Israelites coming from other areas, and the same phenomenon existed throughout Europe. Our peoples who are of Israelite descent remaining together, staying together, and moving as if driven by unseen impulses to rejoin their brethren Israelites, and giving expression to their Israelite ancestry. In the British Isles we find people from the tribes of Joseph, as we mentioned. In Scotland we find people from Asher, as well alongside Manasseh and Ephraim. In England we find people from all of the tribes, but especially Ephraim. In Wales from Ephraim as well as Dan and Simeon. In Ireland from Simeon and Dan, as well as from Ephraim and Manasseh, and also from Judah. In other words, we find elements from all of the tribes concentrated together in these Israelite regions. But usually one or other of the tribes is predominant, and he gives his tribal expression to the whole. And this is important to you. It is important that you know this. It's important for your ancestry. Nowadays, from the Jewish people, from the former residents of the kingdom of Judah, from the tribe of Judah, which dominates them, they have begun to return to the land of Israel. They are rebuilding the land of Israel. They are breaking the ground, as if to say, preparing the way for all of the other tribes to come and join them, to settle alongside them. And they need to be supported, because this is for the good of humanity. This is what the Bible wants. This is what God Almighty wants. This is what should be done, and we should support them. And even if it means going against all of the rest of the world and standing up to all the rest of humanity, this is what we should do. Because if this is what is required of us, so be it. Because this is what makes us what we are. And this is for the good of all. And we will mention this and prove our point concerning who the lost 10 tribes are and where they went, and giving evidence and discussing its significance to you and to all those about you. May God bless all of you.